Thanks so much for staying there. This is TV3, and you're also listening to us on 92.7 and 95.1. This is our continuous coverage, the afternoon edition of the EC's forum on the voters register with stakeholders. And we're continuing from the break, and the Center for Democratic Development has just taken the podium and is presenting its petition. Quickly, let's join the action from the Alisa Hotel, and we'll take you through the rest of the process for this afternoon.
Behind that, it's therefore important that the process by which voters are registered is improved by appropriate means. So going forward, and to address the immediate concern, which is the possibility that the current voter register is flawed and therefore cannot be trusted for the election coming. We believe that it is the responsibility given to it by the Constitution, the Electoral Commission, to make this kind of decision whether the voter register is flawed and cannot be used for 2016 or not. However, the Electoral Commission can only make that decision based on proper analysis, scientific analysis of the current register to let us know the extent or the degree to which the voter register is flawed or not. And so, as has been re-echoed earlier this morning, we believe that in the present controversy, it will be important and critical for the EC to conduct a thorough audit of the voter register. We are also mindful that some of the indicators needed to conduct a thorough audit may not necessarily exist, because, for example, we don't even have addresses of some of the voter register of the voters in the register. But we think that in order to establish a proper context, it will be good and in the interest of this country and for the EC to use the claim made by the MPP as a prima facie basis for conducting an audit of the existing voter register. That can only tell us whether there is some legitimacy in the allegation or not. Without that, I think it will be an exercise in futility to just jump into conclusion and say that we are going to do a new voter register. We believe that the EC has the capacity and should use that as a case to look into the current voter register and determine whether the flaws that have been, or if there are flaws, and to what degree or extent of that flaw. And if that flaw cannot be remedied by cleaning and deleting and auditing the register, then we can begin to move to the next phase of how then do we remedy the problems that we have with our current register. If there are flaws, assuming there are flaws, and the flaws are so large that auditing or deleting or cleaning is not possible, then we can begin to have a conversation around how do we generate a new register if that is needed and if that decision is made. But we cannot just get up and make that decision without analyzing and reviewing the processes that has led us into this situation today. What are the weaknesses in our current processes that allow some of these flaws to happen? What are the roles of the political parties? What are the roles of citizens? What are the roles of the Electoral Commission in ensuring that people who come to register are people who, by law, are regarded? And therefore, we see this issue not as a short-term problem. We see this as a medium, long-term problem that requires a sustainable approach to developing a voter register for this country. If we don't do that, we will end up coming back here to have the same conversation in 4 years' time. So what do we propose? We propose the following. First, a short-term measure targeting 2016 election. And we think that the EC must review the register, review the allegations made by the MPP or any other party, or any stakeholder, to ascertain the veracity of those claims. And once those claims have been established and solutions found to them, whether those solutions can be done within the EC, bringing all the stakeholders, political parties to claim so that we can have a generally acceptable register for 2016. If those investigations also suggest that we need to do a new register, then we need to have a broad consensus as to how do we generate a new register that will not become a subject of contestation in the near future. In the medium to long term, I think the problem with our voter registration generally is because of the absence of a broad-based, what we call voter registry or registry system that many countries have. A database that we can source eligible voters from. And therefore, we think that we may begin to consider abandoning a single voter registration card and use a multi-purpose card for voting and doing some other things in addition. So for instance, if as a country, if you are going to invest into a voter register, a register that will not bring us problem, then we should take the national identification issue seriously. We think that the form of identification that is designed for use solely for election purposes is more prone to electoral fraud than a multi-purpose ID like a passport or a national ID card. And therefore, as an initial part of the reform process, we believe that there's a need to abolish the verbal form of identification in voter registration. It is open to abuse. And then we also believe that a national ID card to every citizen, linking voter ID to birth and death registry, is a more reliable means that can sustain our voter registration processes. So to conclude, we ask for the following. A, the EC should address specific concerns that have been raised about the current voter register. The EC should redesign the process for creating future voter registers with the realities on the ground. We also think that the underlying problems which produce poor voter register, which has brought all of us here today, should be considered and addressed so that the process becomes transparent and reliable. And we also believe that we can never have a good register if the political parties don't play their role. If they don't mobilize agents to be at the exhibition phase, if they stop encouraging minors to go and register, if they stop busing people from one area to another place, then we will come back to the same place. So as much as that we are putting so much problems or so much concern on the EC, the political parties must also shoulder much of the problem. And finally, we think that towards the medium to long term, the EC and perhaps Parliament of this country should study available evidence of best practices on voter registration and adapt some of them to suit our context. So hopefully in the next 2 days for CDD, what we are hoping to get out of this place will be a short-term response to the immediate problem, but more importantly, a medium to long-term solution that will not bring this country to this place again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions?
That'd be good.
Thank you. You indicated that if we did the assessment and got something we consider very large flaw, what would be the extent of such a large flaw? What would you say? What percentage error margin? Or how would you determine that?
I will suggest and argue that first of all, let me put this, there's no such thing like a perfect voter register. There's nothing like that. And every country has its own problems with the voter register, but you work to reduce the excesses. If we find in the voter register that we have flaws that move around above 5%, I think it will be a problem for this country, considering the fact that elections have been closely contested in this country, and the margin of error or margin of vote, the victory has always been close. So you want to reduce the degree of flaw in the voter register. And I'm basing this from best practices of how do you determine margin of error, confidence level, and therefore 95% confidence level and between 3 to 5% margin of error should be an acceptable document. So above 5% will be a problem.
Why 5% when the margin of win is less than sometimes 2%? Wouldn't that mean that your error is absorbing or pushing the win to one side or the other? So what would be the determining factor for 5% in light of what we know?
Mr. Chair, I made the recommendation of between 5% based on statistically accepted principles. And from what we do at the center with our full barometer surveys and other studies, we believe that when you have a sample size of 95% confidence level and a margin of error between 3 and 5%, you can trust that document or the source of information for the purpose for which you want to use for. I do appreciate and I do understand that the margin of error in our elections has between 2%, 3%. But this is my recommendation. The rest will be for the panel and for the stakeholders to decide if we decide to go that route.
I just want to ask, assuming that there are flaws in the existing voters register and the whole process is leading to that, do you think that we have effective mechanisms already in place that can address these problems?
Until, and I was here when the general made the presentation from the NDC, some of us were part of the people who commended the BVR exercise as being the most improved voter registration exercise. And until the new allegations surfaced, and I'm not saying that allegations are true, we thought that the processes, the mechanisms that we have were close to perfect, that can reduce the degree of flaws in our register, because we're going biometric, especially for the voter registration exercise. But we also do know that there are certain things that the biometric system cannot detect. For instance, minor underage, it cannot do that. We also do know that, and especially with the Supreme Court ruling, that part of the rules or conditions or identity for registering, one of them cannot be full proof, the NHIS. So it appears to me that based on these lessons that we have identified, there are some flaws in the processes of registration. But more importantly, I think that these flaws, many of them, majority of them, can be addressed if all stakeholders play their role very well. If the party agents, the political parties, ensure and train their people to use the appropriate mechanisms of challenge processes. If the parents and all of us do not send minors to go and register, if we do know of foreigners, but we encourage them to come and register, then because it's a human endeavor, the flaws will emerge. So for me, I think the current mechanisms are strong enough. I think they were thought through. They provide safeguards, but it is the operationalization of them that results in the problems that we may be having.
So in your view, the issue is not with the mechanism, but with the human factors and the question of vigilance.
Yeah, so to a large extent, in my view, that is part of the problem. But because it's a human endeavor, we need to strive to always find ways to reduce the temptation on the part of human to abuse the process.
Any other questions? Yes.
Just a very quick one. You might notice that I'm hesitant in using percentages and things here on the statistics side, because I hold a belief that you're supposed to get it correct, meaning everything there is supposed to be there or should not be there. So my question really is that if the existing structures are adequate, but the implementation is what the challenge is, so we're going to work on that, then maybe we should not be talking of a percentage. We should be talking about continuously removing it until whenever. Meaning you keep on doing that. You said, I don't know how you will say if it's more than this, then I stop. Because if you remove those ones, you have a much better register than perhaps if you start. So I'm wondering whether it's a reasonable thing to choose a bogey rather than to commit to remove everyone we identify. So how would you react to that?
Mr. Chair, part of the weaknesses is also relates to how do we continue to remove those things, because it requires the involvement and participation of all of us. So if there are people who are dead in your community and you don't come to report, there's no way those names can be removed. And so the first, from my own experience in these exercises, in most places that I've worked in, the first approach for any election management body will be to do an internal cleaning and removal. But if you have a situation where the EC has no legal mandate to identify minors in the system, then those things will remain in them. If you have a process where we find it very difficult to identify foreigners, non-citizens, not to register, then it becomes a difficult exercise to do. And so the best or the first approach to any election management body when it comes to voter registration is to continuously perfect the register. It's a continuous exercise. However, you can only do that well if you have robust mechanisms and checks that will allow you to be able to do or conduct such exercise. Do we have it in Ghana currently? I think that our EC officials in the past historically has demonstrated quality, not only in Ghana, but when they go out, they do well. Why is it that we cannot do it in-house? Why is it that we have problems in-house? I think it's something that we need to interrogate and also identify what other structures or mechanisms that we can use to strengthen that. And I would say that even if we decide today to do a new voter register with all the new technology, all new ideas, continuous cleaning will be part of the exercise for every EMB. How do we connect the Electoral Commission to death registry, to birth registry, to national ID system, And how do we guarantee that political parties will not be mischievous and self-centered, which is difficult to get, to ensure that we have a credible document that we all can use? That's how I will address your question.
We have a question from the audience. Mr. Chairman from the panel.
I'm a little confused as to what your judgment on our capacity is, because you talk about when EC historically has done well, when they go out, they've done well, but we continue to have these problems. So how do you relate our performance outside to the continuous problems we have? And what would be the conclusion on the capacity?
Mr. Chair, I'm not going to impute any unprofessionalism or negative issues around for the EC. But let me answer you in a broad issue. I think you agree with me that when Ghanaians get consultancy abroad, they put in more than they do back home in their own countries in terms of our own performance. This is how I want to look at it. I think that, which one? Some Ghanaians, let me qualify that, some Ghanaians. I think that what I'm trying to say is that, Mr. Chair, that I don't think
order, please.
I don't think we lack capacity in our EC. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think we lack capacity within our election management body. And the right things that require to be done can be done. So part of the problem is also had to do with the temporary staff that the Electoral Commission recruits to undertake some of this exercise. The question is to what extent that the capacity, the training that are provided to these people are in the manner that they can perform their work. So I do think that the problem of every election year having debate on the voter register is something that we should not be talking about, with six elections and 20 years of democracy in this country. I think it is something that if the EC puts its mind to it, if they draw on best practices from within, experience from within and outside, they should be able to address some of these issues and concerns. And I think this morning, was it Peter who said that there are even local-based IT companies that we can tap their services. So my point about possible contradiction is that we know our EC of doing well and excelling when they get out, but we also have a problem in-house. So there must be something wrong, and it may have to do with the structure of the organization.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to throw in a question if I can. I think, is it possible that the EC is doing well, that EC is doing fine, and the process is doing well, only, we don't recognize them in our home? It's okay, and we have little knots to clean or improve or make better. But because we are in the house here, we say everything is bad. I'm saying it's possible that this business of someone is not recognizing his home and so on may also be a factor. I just want you to weigh on that, because it may not be clear-cut one or the other. It may well be that because we are close to the issue, we see the problems appear larger. but those who are a little bit at a distance see the truth.
I'm not too sure of that, and I would respectfully disagree with you on that. I think where the EC has done well, we commend them. Political parties have commended the EC in the past and present when they have done well and when they perform. And in the same context, when they do not perform, people also condemn them. So I don't think it is part of that scenario. I do think that there might be something fundamentally wrong somewhere in terms of the operations of the EC the last few years that has enabled a lot more criticisms. I think that whether you like it or not, the petition at the Supreme Court also exposed some weaknesses in the administration of elections and the degree to which EC officials, whether permanent or temporary staff, conduct themselves. And if those things are highlighted and are brought to the fore, I don't think it is a question of we not appreciating the role that they play. I think, by and large, it's been balanced since 1992, where they have performed, they are commended, and either publicly or privately. But I think where they are not, it comes out. I do think, however, that, and this is something that I personally have commented on or made to some people that I know close to the EC and others, that I think one of the problems that I see with the EC is the proactiveness in letting the public or citizens or Ghanaians know about what their challenges are or what they may be doing. So, for instance, I'll keep saying that, well, if you were able to meet with the stakeholders and you deleted 8,000 or 70,000 names, why do you keep it only to the political parties and all the Ghanaians know that we are doing these exercises and we are continuously working? The lack of proactiveness on the part of the EC, in my view, allows some of us not to see the positives or the good works that they do. And I think this is something that they have to stamp their authority on the game. I am a citizen of this country. I am a trained political scientist. I am a democracy activist. I do know that political parties are very important stakeholders, but they are also self-centered. And therefore, if we allow our EC stakeholders, and that's what they keep saying, our stakeholders are the political parties. But your stakeholders really, in my view, are the citizens, the voters that go to vote. And if you don't communicate and you don't let people know what you're doing and you leave it only to the parties, those parties will take what benefits them, but they will twist or say something differently outside. And I think it's important for the EC to expand their work beyond. And I'll give you an example. We've been trying to be on IPAC. The party say that they won't allow us to be in. But again, that's a different matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm listening to CDD.
Yes.
Great. I, unfortunately, without sounding impertinent,
Could you please identify?
My name is Sylvester Mensah, former Chief Executive, National Health Insurance Authority. I was expecting to hear a very clear position from CDD, particularly in view of the fact that this discussion has been going on for a very long time. But there's no clear position that you have thrown out at the moment. And secondly, you spoke about the Electoral Commission and their performance. I hear perceptions, I hear hypothetical issues, I hear conjecturing. There is no clear statement or chronicling of areas of deficiency that you want us to know. And it's all been rather theoretical. I would love to hear something more concrete. I want to hear something about your position. What is your definition of a new register? Is it cleaning of the register which makes it new? Is it re-registration which makes it new? And your clear position. I think that would be extremely helpful to this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let me start with the last question, and I will disappoint you on that because I'm not going to go into reviewing the EC as an institution. That's not why we are here. I only made reference to that in respect to the voter registration. So maybe another forum I can get into the deficiencies that I see. I only mentioned the proactiveness. So I won't discuss detail of that. But I think we do have a position. And I've articulated those positions clearly. We are not EC. I can't verify what the NPP has said to be is credible or not. I don't know. So what we're saying is that our position are the following. A, the EC must use those claims or allegations from the NPP as the basis of auditing and investigating those allegations in the register to ascertain whether there is some truth or not of the claim. I cannot say we should have a new register because I don't have that evidence. So until the EC does that exercise, that is where it will have a legal and moral basis to recommend for a new register or not. I said from the beginning that the Constitution mandates the EC to be responsible for compiling registers. It is not political parties, it's not CDD to do registers, it's the EC. But the EC can only do that if there are some prima facie evidence to suggest that the current register cannot be used. And that's why we are recommending. So position A, take that case, interrogate it, let us know whether there is some truth in that or not. If there are, as I said, if it's established that there are certain inaccuracies or flaws in the register, then we move to plan B. What is it? Can we cleanse it? Now I'm coming to you. Can we take a technical approach to clean it and then have an acceptable register for 2016? If we cannot clean it and the flaws, as I said, is so large that we cannot trust the register as being credible, then we move to the next step of maybe we should do a new register. But we can only do, our position is that we can only do a new register only if we interrogate the processes, the weaknesses that has brought us here. If we don't do that and address them, we will come back again. And that's not what CDD wants. This morning we were talking about money. We don't want to spend money on voter register again, in my view, once we solve this problem here. I don't know whether I've answered you.
You all heard what Dr. Rekubebi stated, that all our previous voters' registers have been bloated. The inference is that the present one is bloated and the future one is likely to be bloated as well. So far, there is no denial that there are identifiable discrepancies, errors. Somebody must be responsible for them. Until we find those who are perpetually engaging in that kind of conduct, it means we can't solve the problem. You see, I know political parties have covert operations, operations. But what I mean is that in all competitive exercise, people sit down and strategize how they can beat their opponents. And that is what results in all these abuses. So, so far we haven't blamed anybody. But then it's easy to say that all of us are blameable. You see, but I want you, as a political scientist, how best can I believe that partly it is the undue tensions generated by elections. It's like do or die kind of scenario. As if everything is so much at stake that if you don't win, that is what makes people do funny things. So this exercise which you are engaging is the human factor. All these things about easy, they are technicalities. I don't think that one is the cause of what we are here. Criminals always are ahead of those who detect them. You see. So I think we should focus primarily on getting the political parties to assure us that those things they will do them no more. Because
what I'm saying, yeah.
They say they will not do them. You see, we will continue to make easy the scapegoat. You see, fortunately, all the abuses we identified, they are not things that I will say harm any one side. They don't harm MPP. They don't harm NDC. So then how do we see the manipulators? How they also organize things that we get these things in a repetitive way. The fact that they continue to happen all the time means that there must be a scheme to them. So I'm asking you as a podcast scientist, without blaming anybody. Okay. I'm TN Wardrobe. You see, I want you to find out from you, as a podcast scientist, how best you can help the panel and all of us here, so that you are able to identify those who are causes of the repetitive happenings of these things all the time. You see, I don't want you also to think that those who are making accusations are necessarily free of it. They could even be the causes of it. You see, so I want that we are frank with the panel, so that we don't let them come and sit down here. Then we'll be talking about the technicalities. When the real things that make us do it is within the human. Maybe the Osofo can help us.
Well,
I have two of the spiritual people here, one on my left and one on my right. If you want assistance, Mr. Brew, they will help you. They are here.
We will invite all the political parties to join us at Atria, and then we will do exorcism.
No, I think essentially what Mr. Bruce said is exactly what I've said, that we cannot just decide to do a new register without addressing the problems and the challenges and the actions and inactions of all of us, political parties, citizens, and officials, all of us. Without that, I don't think we will solve the problem. So I agree with you, but maybe you can help identify some of the covert ways that the parties adopt, so that the EC can